Kia ora and welcome to the Bay of Plenty Regional Environment Network sessions online from the 14th to the 21st of September. My name is Janie Stevenson and I'm the Bay of Plenty Regional Coordinator for New Zealand Landcare Trust. This event is an annual collaboration between New Zealand Landcare Trust and EnviroHub, so kia ora Liesl from EnviroHub, to support environmental groups across the Bay of Plenty. This year, after 2 in-person event cancellations due to COVID-19, we are taking the whenua online for a week of lunchtime inspirational kōrero. We hope you have a delicious kai and a couple with you today and have registered for our other fantastic wren sessions over the coming week. These sessions will be recorded and the links are available for viewing from the EnviroHub and New Zealand Landcare Trust websites, and we'll send you the link after this once we've edited it slightly. We'd really appreciate it if you could keep your mics off. I can see you've already done that just during the presentation, but use the chat function to add any questions. So I can see that there's, okay, so we've got some people whose camera's not working. That's all right, I'll try and figure that one out for you in a minute, all right? But if you've got any questions throughout our session today, just add them to the chat and Jade's going to be able to answer those when he's finished his kōrero. So we're really lucky to have Jade here along today. He is the Māori Systems Innovator from Healthy Families Rotorua, and he's speaking on Maramataka in conservation. Part of Jade's role is to use innovative practice to develop good health outcomes for his communities. Jade has researched and tested the traditional tauranga Māori practices of the Maramataka, the lunar calendar, to increase the health and well-being of community. Today, he will share his insights on this and how the Maramataka is linked to good outcomes for people and the environment. So kia ora, Jade. Thank you for being with us today.
Kia ora. Timata? Kia ora tātou, no ki te maringa nui, ko tai mai koutou ki te whakarongo, ki tōku nei kōrero i tēnei ahiahi, i tēnei me ki te paupautanga o te rā. Tuatai, ko wai tēnei e kōrero hia nei, ko Jade Kameta tōku ingoa, hei uri tēnei o Te Arawa, Ngāti Pikiao, tēnei tēnei atu nei kia koutou. And I would like to acknowledge Te Pikiao Te Reo Māori. This is Te Pikiao Te Reo Māori, and I'd like to mention, as if it wasn't for our reo Māori, my mahi, and the mahi that I do, in terms of revitalising our traditional practices like a Maramataka would be impossible. So I'd like to acknowledge Te Pikiao Te Reo Māori. So yes, I'm here to talk about Maramataka. Most basic form. I only have 40 minutes, so I'll do my best to try and squeeze it in within 40 minutes Gregorian time. So I'll start my kōrero here from a simple whakatauki, and that whakatauki proverb goes like this: Tuia ki te rangi, tuia ki te whenua, Tuia ki te moana, tuia ki te herenga tangata, ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ao. So, our tupuna Māori, we could take something so complex and really simplify it and capture our world and explain it in the most simplest way, like through whakatauki, like I've just explained. And if I can translate that just a little bit, that whakatauki reminds us that everything is connected. Everything in the sky is connected to everything on the ocean. Everything on the ocean is connected to everything on the land, which is also connected to us. Ka rongo te pō, ka rongo te ao. And I'll elaborate more on that later because that's all about observations. And there are tohu that happen around in the sky. There are tohu that happen in the sky and on the land and in the sea. We also give tohu. And those tohu are indicating, are telling us things. Those tohu are also reminding us that things are, everything in this world is connected. Tuka ki waititi a kaumātua pantawhānau whenui. said that nothing, he said whakatauki in Māori, but I'll explain it in English. He said nothing in this world was meant to live, nothing in this world was meant to exist and live in isolation. And our tupuna knew that, because if we go back into our whakapapa, all Māori and Indigenous people around the world, we knew that we were children of rangi and whakatuanuku. We knew that our genealogy, if we went back into our whakapapa, would connect back to the environment. So today I want to talk about those fundamentals to help you if you're interested in growing your knowledge around Maramataka, because it all comes down to the art of observation. So our tupuna mastered the art of observation. We know all too well the movie Once We're Warriors. Yes, our tupuna were known as warriors. I like to say use the word soldiers, because they were soldiers rather than warriors. But we forget that they were also scientists. They were also astronomers. They were also marine biologists, environmental scientists, and so much more. And they were also navigators. There's evidence out there. There's plenty of evidence out there to prove that we were the best, some of the best navigators that ever walked this earth. Māori and our cousins out in the Pacific Ocean. However, they became those things through, like I mentioned, the art of observation. Just like Western science focus on the five senses, mainly the five senses, which are sight, what they see, what they hear, what they touch, what they smell, and what they taste. And Western sciences, whatever they're exploring in this world, that's what they capture. That's how they capture the observations on those five senses. What they see, what they hear, what they touch, what they smell, and what they taste. They capture those observations, and whatever they're exploring as part of the evidence, the data and evidence, and whatever they're exploring. Our tupuna, yes, they would take their observations on those same things, but they would also measure things like mauri, wairuatanga, and I'm sure you're wondering how could they measure that? And I want to give you some examples of it. How could they measure mauri? How could they measure wairuatanga? It was simple. If we look at our waterways, I'll just give you some examples. If you look at our waterways, you can also always tell if your waterways are mauri ora, mauri mawiwi, or mauri mate. If you don't understand Te Reo Māori, so mauri ora is like you can tell if your waterways are healthy or not healthy, or if they're dying just by the life that exists within those waterways. That's an example of mauri from our Māori worldview. If you've been living in the same place, if you're from a particular area, you can also measure mauri, because you would know you could compare what your whenua and what your moana was looked like when you were a child compared to how it is now. That's how you met just take some examples of how our people could measure mauri and wairuatanga within your environment. But they would also take those measurements and connect those measurements with everything else that's happening in the world, and capture they will connect all the observations with the rangi, the whenua, with the moana, and also with ourselves. If that's making any sense. And they would capture that in whakatauki, and they would capture that and record it in whakatauki and paki waitara in our stories. So and within our art forms as well. in the art of whakairo, tāmoko, aba, te mea. That's how our ancestors captured the science. That's how they captured astronomy, navigation, and all those things within pūrākau, within our stories, and within our arts and our whakatauki. And I'll leave that there with you. And I want to share with you some of the resources we have here in Te Arawa, developed by one of my advisory group called Maramataka Te Arawa. I'll leave a link with Janie for all of you that want to access these resources. I'm just going to open something up and share the screen. All right. This resource here is called Mātai Tohu, and it's a resource to help people, to prompt people into taking observations. If you want to take your own observations, you can change these questions up, but these are questions to prompt people into taking observations. Today, for my Maramataka and the Maramataka that I follow, the Maramataka Te Arawa, today is Omutu. There's Omutu here, and there's a question here: how do I feel today? What did you do? How did it go? What did you notice around you? And what did you notice about the environment? Simple, real simple questions to help people take observations, because it's observations. That's what it's all about. It's about journaling every day. And then when you begin to take observations, when you begin to take observations constantly, every day, and connecting your observations up with the rest of the taiao, you begin to see things that you didn't notice before. You begin to hear things that you didn't notice. You begin to smell things, and just notice. You'll open your mind and your wairua up to a lot of things that you didn't notice before. And our tupuna could do that with ease, because they already had an intimate connection with the environment, because they knew their whakapapa. And those things, those unseen things that you didn't notice, that through the arts of observations, if you begin to do observations and practice Maramataka, those unseen things are what we refer to as matangaro, matahuna. Some iwi call them kuruhuna. And I'll break those down for you. So matahuna is something that you can't see, but you know that it exists, but because you can see its impact on something. For example, wind. You can't see wind, but you can feel the wind on your skin. You can see how the wind affects the trees. That is a matangaro. Our emotions are a matangaro as well. Energy is a matangaro. Like, same thing. You can't see them, but you know they exist, because you can see tohu. For example, people. We know that emotions exist because how the way people express themselves. And that's related to the environment as well. So our tupuna knew that things moved in rhythm. The environment is constantly moving in rhythm. Environmental physiology, they have a term called the circadian rhythms. Other forms of science, quantum physics, have a term called biomagnetic energy. It's the same. We Māori just called that mauri. Mauri ora, mauri mate, mauri mau, iwi, te me. So that was a resource that I wanted to share with you today, and that resource is available through the link that Janie's going to be sharing with you guys this afternoon. But yeah, that's just to prompt people into taking observations. You won't get anywhere with Maramataka without observation. We may not have advertised it, but if you want to grow your knowledge around Maramataka, you have to do some work. All right, another resource that I want to share with you is this resource. Under the website, it's under war chart or Maramataka Te Arawa 2020 to 2021. On the left, on the top here, so I won't have time to break down all the phases, all the lunar phases individually, but what we've done is collate lunar phases and put them into phases, like into 3s and 4s, and put our perception and our description of how those particular times work, or what they particular lunar phases mean to us. So on the top here, you've got Te Ngāo Rawa, highest energy, and that's around your full moon, Ngāko Nui, or Turu Ngāko Nui, Ngāko Mātohi, that's your full moon. Your orange, this orange symbol here, Te Ngāo Rawa, highest energy. We also have productive energy. That's when times are fertile. It's known as the Tangaroa phase. Te Ngāo Memeha, waning energy. On this waning time, with waning energy, that's when whenua is unproductive. Moana is supposed to be unproductive as well. And we say that that's the time when when the whenua is unproductive, that's the time we're supposed to be giving back to the whenua. When the moana is unproductive, that's the time we're meant to be giving back to the moana, as opposed to taking. So with Maramataka, when you learn Maramataka, it teaches you how to live in harmony with the environment. Te Ngāo Makua, lowest energy, that's around fetal. We're going into that phase now. Just by the look on Janie's face, I know that I can tell that she's going into a low energy phase. We're going into that phase, so the new moon fetal is around Thursday. Te Ngā moderate energy, Te Ngā Ōrite, really good for planting anything. And yeah, those are your moderate energy days, the green. Te Ngā Matawhāwhati, the unpredictable time, the unpredictable phase, and it's unpredictable for a reason, because according to us Māori, we believe that that particular phase belongs to two particular atua, Tāwhiri Mātea and Ruaumoko, which are atua matangaro, which I mentioned earlier. They are atua you can't see, but you know that they exist because you can see how they make an impact on something else. I've already explained wind, which belongs to Tāwhiri Mātea. If you feel them on our skin, you can see his impact on other things. Same as Ruaumoko, he's an atua that we can't see, but we can feel him when he makes earthquakes. We can see his impact on the whenua. So we say that that particular phase, te wā matawhāwhati, tamatea tuatai, tamatea hangana, tamatea aio, tamatea whakapau, so all that phase belongs to those particular atua, and because we can't see them, it makes their time really unpredictable. Weather's unpredictable, people are unpredictable. If you don't believe me, start taking observations. The Christchurch earthquake, the main Christchurch earthquake, tamatea phase. Tarawera eruption, tamatea phase. The Edgecombe earthquakes in the 1980s, tamatea phase. We've already tracked them. Even most recently in those, we've just here in Rotorua, we've been feeling earthquakes, just minor earthquakes, and those were wiping out some of their face. So here's the importance around taking, just an example on the importance of taking observations, whatever they are, and connecting those observations up with everything else, with our Tuia, with the rangi, connecting those observations up with the rangi, connecting those observations up with the whenua, connecting those observations up with the moana, and everything else that's happening. All right, connecting them up to what's happening in the environment with our stars, with our lunar phases. So when I talk about lunar phases, so I mentioned earlier, yes, this is where we are, Omutu. Can you see the screen? So we're in Omutu. If you follow this down and go follow it all the way down to the 15th, because we're in the 15th Gregorian time, you'll find that we're in Omutu, which is over here. And within that, Te Ngā Makua, which is the lowest energy time. Right. And we have no Te Pikiao this month, so which means we'll go back up to Feudal Fitzi. And Feudal is the beginning of each month. So Omutu. So Omutu, I've mentioned lunar calendar because that's what people say, lunar calendar, but Hine Marama, from a Māori worldview, Hine Marama, if I can say that describe her, that she's a queer, she's a queer who's been around for quite some time, who's dictating everything around her, dictating everything on the land and in the sea. Everything living organism on this planet is listening to her. But are we listening to her? We're affected by her, but are we actually listening to her? And that's the challenge, and that's what we want to get back to with Maramataka, with the understanding of Maramataka. And Omutu is a description of the day, which also involves the land, the sea, which also involves the sun and the stars, everything. So that's Omutu is actually a description of the day. There's this misinterpretation that when people see a moon and see whatever shape it is, they call that Omutu. But no, that's the Marama, Hine Marama actually telling us that it's Omutu. She's describing the day. Yeah. Or you can pretty much say that she's subscribing the day. She's like a doctor subscribing medicine for us. But she's subscribing the day. So that's if you can get that thinking in your head. So you're on down the side here are all the days. Mahine Marama describing the days. On the top here they're all stars, but the months on the top. And we fit the Gregorian calendar within our Maramataka. We've found if you do it the other way around, there's all this mismatch happening, and people struggle when they do that. We fit the Gregorian calendar within our calendar. You'll notice days that get left out, certain lunar phases that we skip and then the change. This is how Te Arawa, this is how we work. So each iwi, depending on where you are, have their own way of interchanging days. So if I could explain that, lunar phases in the winter are very different from lunar phases in the summer. Here in Te Arawa, because we're an inland tribe, Te Arawa ki uta, and I was telling Janie earlier, because she's Te Arawa ki tai and Maketu, but we're Te Arawa ki uta. We have lakes around here, we have geothermal activity. Our Maramataka is built to suit our environment. And Maramataka is a measure of, it's a universal measure of time, space, and energy. Okay, it's a universal measure of time, space, and energy. It takes into account everything. So we don't not only take our measure of time by the sun and the moon and the stars. We also take measurements of time by what's happening on the land as well. So Māori and Mawharu are related to the kumara here in Te Arawa, and they represent days of you plant on that particular day. Your kumara have got a really good chance of turning out really big and an abundance. That's what those days represent. But they only come back in during the warmer seasons. So next month we'll have the return of Māori. So that's that's September, August, October, November, December, January, and towards the summer we will have Māori and Mawharu back in. And if you plant on kumara on those days, we've got a good chance of turning out big and in abundance. And we've already tested that. We've already tested that with our mass kumara plantings here in Te Arawa. So yes, I think we can dive and take the scope of in so many different directions, but those are the fundamentals. Through observations and connecting those observations with the rest of what's happening around you, with the environment. You learn to do that, you can get a more of a precise reading. I've been involved with some water testing in the environment alongside the Maramataka, alongside other organisations like. They've only brought me in the end. They've brought me in the end to look at their data, look at their data and match it up with the Maramataka. And when we put the two together, look at the Maramataka, our science alongside Western science, we can narrow things right down and get more of a precise reading, which gets really exciting. Anything about Maramataka excites me, but that's when things get really exciting, because with Maramataka we can stop wasting our time, but we can you can easily see the readings. You can easily see the rhythms, and those rhythms are always connected with the environment. I think it's up last. And now any pārtai? Ka te roki a whakaotirangi. Kia ora. Kia ora. I'd like to mention that while we're on kumara, we have we've been working alongside Te Rangi Kāke and Bruni Hongfek from Te Whānau Apanui. Bruni Hongfek, who married a Waititi from Te Whānau Apanui, who's been a huge part of the researchers and revitalisation of kumara practices, traditional kumara practice. But Kai Rotorua and Bruni Hongfek are really passionate about food sovereignty. And we've been working hard in that space for the last few years here in Rotorua around food security, food sovereignty. A few years back, 2-3 years back, a group from here called Kai Rotorua went up to Auckland, Tagabu, went up to Tagabu where they planted kumara there. And we got these kumara, but that's not the only thing they gave to us. They gave us kumara, and they gave us an old story on how they got the kumara. And how they got their kumara, they got the kumara right here in Rotorua at Rohinamitu during the time of the Great Depression. And they knew they knew because we gave, Te Arawa gave their kumara to them to support them. In that time they had names, they had dates, but they also knew where particular kumara, or Wairaka red and another kumara, could whakapapa back to the time of the migration, back to ke te roki, whakaotirangi. Yes, there's this debate around whakaotirangi. Did she come on the Te Arawa waka? Did she come on the Tainui waka? Hey, we both she spent time on both waka. But those people have been growing kumara for years, and a lot of our, they supply a lot of our the kumara coming through our supermarkets. But that kumara in the last 2 years has finally returned back to where they got it from. It was beautiful. So Maramataka reminds us, you know, that everything is connected. There is no such thing as a coincidence, just whakapapa. Everything is connected. All right.
Kia ora, Jade. I think there were a few patai. In fact, I think there's not many of us, so it could be quite a nice opportunity to turn your mics on if you want to, and ask any patai that you have today. I think one of the questions, Jade, in our chat was around, it was from Alicia, who has her Maramataka from Tai Pukero, and just wondered, how do you feel about this, you know, whether and how would non-Māori best approach Maramataka, and how do you feel about Maramataka from different areas and different iwi? I know you talked about that a little bit before.
Yep, cool. First, there's two great questions, and I'll separate the two questions. First, I'll touch on the differences between Maramataka and why it's different in certain regions, why it's different in certain iwi, because Maramataka has been adjusted to suit our particular environment. For example, I follow the Te Arawa Maramataka here in Te Arawa, and we collated a whole lot of data and a whole lot of we're very fortunate to come across old writings, old journals from old tohunga that we left in families, collecting dust in family cupboards and drawers that have been there for years. But with the the passion of our mahi and a few others, those journals started surfacing, and we started deciphering. So the hard work had already been done, and we didn't want to rewrite or reinvent the wheel. So that's what we did. That's what we've done, and we got a number of journals from a number of tohunga that are no longer with us. And the cool thing is that all them their Maramataka was the same. However, what makes us different here in Rotorua, I know from Te Tai Maramataka, like Te Tai like the whānau Wapanui who had theirs, Te Tai Tokero. I think you guys have more tangaroa days. I think you guys have about 5 tangaroa days. Here in Te Arawa, Te Arawa ki Uta, we only have 3. Tangaroa Amua, Tangaroa Aroto, Tangaroa Kiokio. If we count Tangaroa Korikori Piriki ngā Tangaroa, we can say that we have 3.5 Tangaroa phase. And then we switch into a phase called Otane. It's like that because back in our times, we didn't focus all our energy, focus on fishing, and then now because of our lakes, we only have lakes here, and we switched and we focused our energy on Te Waunui Atane, which was in our forest. Yeah, so the more coastal you are, you have more tangaroa days. The more inland you have less tangaroa days and more Otane days. The more inland, the more inland as we go into places like Tūhoi, they have less tangaroa days, more Otane days. Yeah, to suit their environment. For example, I gave that example around the kumara, so we also took our timelines around the kumara, and each iwi had their own methods on how they interchange lunar phases to suit them. Maori Mawharu is the work here in Tauranga. Another example is that we here in Tauranga, we're fortunate to see matariki, so we know matariki, iwi that are on the west coast of New Zealand. Their star is their indicator that indicates te matai of the Tauhou Māori. Māori New Year is actually puanga, simply because that's the most dominant star. That's the star that they can see, and they can't quite see matariki as such. If that answers your question around why it's different, why Maramataka is different than each here. How I feel about people using Maramataka around different rohe. It's just all good. We're all looking at the same marama. We're all looking at the same. But if you're following in terms of kai, things may not work. In the old days, our lives depended on your knowledge around Maramataka, because you had to know when to go and get kai. You had to know when to grow kai, plant kai, take kai. But yeah, for me personally, I think a kaupapa and the enlightenment and the things you learn about our Maramataka, and the revitalization and normalization of our mātauranga is what it means to me the most. I believe the more people that come on board with this kaupapa, it helps non-Māori understand a Māori worldview, and that's great. That's also really, I believe it's that bridge, a Māori worldview and a non-Māori worldview. Everything that we've done, that our tupuna done, our culture, our practice, our language, everything was developed from these fundamentals, came from our environment. Everything came from our environment. Now we're trying to connect our kaupapa, which is these days we're trying to reconnect back with the environment, doing things in reverse. But in the old days, it was the opposite. The environment created everything else we've done. So I'm starting to waffle.
We need another hour, I think, Jade, at least. I think the Maramataka kōrero is something that it's quite nice to have an introduction and digest it, and then have another workshop. I'm thinking, Jade, maybe a whole day workshop over here. That would be awesome. Looks like we may have another question here. Yes. Raina has just mentioned in the chat. Absolutely.
Around the tides have got a huge part of for the coastal tribes, if we live along the coast. They're a huge part of Maramataka and how you work Maramataka. For us here in Tauranga, some of us follow, they say that we switch from phase to phase. Some of us follow moonrise to moonrise. Some of us also say that each phase begins on Te Hapara, which is the rising of the sun. When it's really Te Hapara, that's when the phase starts. Some iwi along the coast actually say that their phase starts on an incoming tide. So they were all working the tides all the time. The coastal tides are working the tides all the time. So ask the same question that I asked you, Jamie. Does anybody know the area where the area or the city or the town that gets the most sun? Does anybody know where you get type the answer in? Which area gets the most sun? The most.
It's not Te Puke, Dean.
Yeah.
There we go. Alba got it right. Whakatane.
Kia ora, Alba.
Whakatane.
Whakatane. Ai, kia ora, whakatane. And I'm going to expand a little bit on that kōrero. So the Kumara story. So whānau Apanui, East Coast, along that, yes, they get the sun first. So whenever they planted kai, and they set their maras up, they have their maras, most of them on the East Coast there, had their maras facing east. And when they planted tipu, plant your tipu in a hook shape. Some say that we followed, we got that shape from Te Matawhaura Maui or Te wakaKo Tamariri, otherwise known as Scorpius. Followed that, and then we planted. So the people on the East Coast plant their tipu shape their garden, and have all their gardens facing east, and they plant all their tipu east. Coming in there towards Whakatane, from Te Arawa, we say that Whakatane all the way across to Maketu, also all the way down towards Maumanui, or that we call that area Te Kaukauroa. And us, including us here in Te Arawa in the Rotorua area, we have the option of facing our gardens north, east and or north, simply because we knew how to optimize the sun. We knew how to make the most of the sun, so we have the option of facing our gardens north or east, because of the way the sun rises and sets. So the sun rises on the east, goes northerly, and sets on the west. That's another reason why different regions have different Maramataka as well, optimizing, making the most of that time. If you want your, especially your kumara, if you want your kumara, give your kumara the best chance of survival and growing, growing big and feeding the masses, you have to align your garden, you have to align Papatūānuku up with the sun, tamanui te rā, with hine marama by planting on the right lunar phase, with ngā whetū by planting in the right season, to optimize, to give that kumara the best chance of survival, the best chance of growth. And that's a template. That's a template you can use if you want to optimize anything that you do. If you want to optimize the mahi that you do in your workplace, if you want to grow a kaupapa, try aligning things up with those rhythms of the
Awesome, Jade. Thank you,
Dean.
Dean.
For now.
Dean,
Yeah.
did you have
Within
something?
that kōrero, I hope you take one thing.
Well, te me tutahi kei te mihi ki a koe Jade manaakitanga o tō matauranga mo te Maramataka kia mātou. E mihi mai. E hoa, I'm Te Arawa ki tai, so I love the fishing and that, and just I'm really impressed with the Maramataka, the sheet there. So I suppose how do I get one of those as a starting point for us anyway? My interest is in the river and the moana out at Maketu, and we're through Te Maru Kaituna, we're in a process of trying to revitalise the pipi and the kaimoana down at Maketu. And so I think I'd be really interested in maybe attending that wānanga or something, or inviting you down because I think if we're to revitalise, I mean we've done the technical thing of adding more fresh water to the salt water to increase the environment that the pipi and that live in, and the tuangi in there, but I think it's understanding the Maramataka and, as you say, aligning. I mean, it's about bringing that kite the Te Kai o Te Arawa back to Makatū. And even though it's over, we have it over at Little Waihi there. We're having oysters coming in now. I mean, when my younger days, there were no oysters there, but they are there now. So the environment is changing and it's adapting. And so, I've just really enjoyed your kōrero e hua. And even with the kumara, one of my pet little interests at the moment is working with ko and making traditional tools and for planting. And so, anyway, e mihi mai ana ki ata koe e hoa.
Mute myself. Thank you, Dean. It sounds like, Jade, we might be organising something straight after this for another wānanga. Are you thumbs up for that one? Awesome. Okay, we'll keep you posted, everybody, on future wānanga with Jade, potentially over this way, Dean, for Makitū. Raina's keen. Choice. We've got a few keen beans. That'll be fantastic. In the meantime, I'll send out those links and resources, and I just want to give a heads up to this resource here, Living by the Moon by Wiremu Tāwhai. I picked this up at Paper Plus, and I found it really useful. It's from Te Whānau Apanui, but Jade and I had a kōrero before about it being quite relevant, parts of it anyway being very relevant. And the other resource, Jade, you mentioned was Matariki. Is that correct? By Dr. Rangi Mātāmoa. So I'll flick those out. Oh, those links. Sorry. There we go. What have I done? I'm not very good with this muting business.
Yes. Matariki by Rangi Mātāmoa. Highly recommend those two books. We're so fortunate, so lucky that Wiremu Tāwhai could write. I did leave that resource for us because the fund, although whānau Apanui are totally different, but the fundamentals are the same across the top of the dog for everybody. The fundamentals and the methodologies are the same. You just with the art of observation, you can actually find. You can almost rewrite a Maramataka for yourself. Once you pinpoint, so that the trick would always go back to the art of observation and reconnecting that with the rest of the environment, whatever you name them. But please do use the Te Arawa one. No.
I think more. And Jade, there's a few other links that I can add in there for Michelle Tibble's mahi and Rangi Mātāmoa's mahi as well. So there's some great places out there to get some more information. But a wānanga would be awesome, I think. So we'll work on that. I just want to take the time to say a big thank you to you all for attending today, and a huge mihi to Jade. Kia ora, that was awesome information. I want to just also give a heads up that tomorrow our kōrero at 12 PM is with Glenn Crowther, and that's on the Bay of Plenty circular economy. So could be a very interesting topic. Please make sure you register on the EnviroHub website. For that kōrero, and we've got other kōrero coming up over this week and Monday next week as well. But thank you, Jade. Thank you everyone for attending. Kia pai tō rā, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
He kona e hoama. Kia pai te rā, omutu.
Ka kite.
Ka kite.